All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get going here. So good afternoon, perhaps good evening, or maybe good morning, depending upon where you're at around the world. Thanks to everybody for joining us here this afternoon. And my name is Dave Wilton. I'm the Assistant Outreach Director for facingthefuture.org, and I'm going to be spending the next 45 minutes with you or so talking about one of our most latest curriculum unit releases, Water Science and Civics, Engaging Students with Puget Sound. So that disembodied voice that you hear, that is me. Again, I'm the Assistant Outreach Director at Facing the Future, based here in Seattle, Washington. I'll tell you a little bit more about us as an organization in a minute. And again, that's my basic contact information if you want to get in touch with me after this webinar, or you can certainly also, like I mentioned before, type in questions or use the chat box. And I'll talk more about using that in a minute also. So if you haven't used GoToWebinar before, here's some brief information about how to use it. There's that slider on the top right-hand side of your screen is where you should find it. You can use that to open up the control boxes, to ask questions, type in the chat box if you want to, if that's there, and adjust your audio setup as well. Just really quickly, I'm curious to hear how many folks have participated in a webinar before. The number seems to be going up as we've done this over the past year. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up our first poll there and give everybody a minute to indicate their response of yes or no if you've participated in a webinar before. And I'll give folks a few more seconds here. It looks like everybody's voted already. You guys are fast voters. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out and share this with everybody. And it looks like the majority of folks have done this already. So that's great to hear. Hopefully I will live up to your webinar expectations and prevent you from doing too much multitasking as we go along. But I understand that that's how the modern world works. So we'll keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And we'll keep moving along here. As you can see there, I will attempt to answer your questions as we go, and an archived copy of this webinar will be saved on our website, facingthefuture.org. You can get to that from our professional development page, and that'll be accessible for you to view and anybody else to view online in the future. So before we get going, I just want to also get a sense of who is here. So I have a couple survey questions just briefly. The first one here is what grade or age level do you work with? And I realize not all of you probably work in school settings formally, but if you can imagine the age or range that you do work with, please give us a sample of who you're with. And if you're in the kind of overall non-formal out of the classroom setting, you can certainly choose to use the overall K through 12 grade span if you want to. See what best works for you. So this will give us a sense of who's here and help me get some sense of how to tailor things, especially considering the age ranges that this was written for. So thanks again for everybody for voting. You guys are quick this afternoon. I'm going to close this out and share this with everybody. So I'm going to guess by the majority of folks who work in the K through 12 sector that some of you are not in the classroom setting, and I can see from the names here that I know some of those folks. So that's great. Thanks for coming. And along the way, there's some other folks who look like are in the K-5 grade range and also in high school. So nobody from middle school here today. So we'll talk about using this in the high school setting and also hopefully give you some ideas for how to use this in middle school and elementary school as well and all those grade ranges. So let's close this out. And really quickly, the next question is more oriented towards what subject areas you're working with. And I'm going to guess that a lot of you are working in multiple subject areas, but let's see who is here and what folks are up to. So people are voting along. Thank you. And it looks like we've got just about everybody voted. And if you don't find one up there that works for you, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and we can get a sense of where people are at. So it looks like the majority of folks here are working in the sciences, which is great to hear. Hopefully you'll have a chance to share this with your other science department folks and also maybe down the hall with other departments as well. And likewise for folks who are working in multiple subject areas or across the curriculum, this unit is definitely written to support doing that. So thank you very much to all of you. I'm going to go and close that out, and let's start moving along then. So I'm not going to ask you to answer these questions, but you certainly can type answers in the chat box or in the question box if you want to get those to me. I'm always curious to hear. But I like to start off our workshops with a question like this. So just imagine in 50 years, I think Puget Sound will be, and just think to yourself, what 3 words would you use to describe how Puget Sound would be? So just take a second and think of what those look like, And if you want to share those thoughts with us, that's fine, but if not, you certainly don't have to. But it's an idea starter more than anything else that we're going to start with to see where we end up with today. So that's how you think Puget Sound will be. There's lots of ways you might envision how the world is going to be based on what you think it might be like, based on what we know right now, what we hear in the media every day, what we know about what's happening in the Puget Sound region. But now let's shift our thinking a little bit, and I'm going to ask you this question, is in 50 years I want Puget Sound to be? So the idea behind this is just by changing our thinking a little bit, by changing our future vision, it helps to kind of shift how we're going to work towards our goals, how we're going to work towards what we want the Puget Sound region to be like. And the thinking versus wanting are kind of two ideas in the same coin. I like to ask these questions because it's a way really, I think, of capturing what we at Face in the Future as an organization are trying to do, which is to support all of you as educators in helping the youth and the students that you work with to shift their thinking, to really get from the thinking part to the wanting part, and to understand what it is that they can do, what they need to do, what you can empower them to do to create the future that they want, be it for Puget Sound, be it for Washington State, be it for the USA or for North America or for the entire world. And we have curriculum resources to support you doing that on all of those levels. So let's talk a little bit more about those briefly. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Face in the Future, we're a nonprofit organization. We're based here in Seattle, Washington. We've been here since 1995. Originally started up on Lopez Island in the San Juans, so we've moved a little bit. We create curriculum that can be used in grades K through 12 across this curriculum for science, social studies, language arts, math, literacy, you name it. We've got materials that you can use in your class or with students outside of the classroom setting. We're used by over 1.5 million students every year around North America and across the world, and in over 120 countries as well. And we do professional development workshops like this, like these free webinars. We go to national, regional, and local conferences like this fall. We're going to be at National Science Teachers Conferences. We're going to be at the National Council for the Social Studies Conference. We also do professional development workshops for schools and districts all across the country also. If you want to learn more about any of that, you can go to our website, faceinthefuture.org. And you can do that, or else get in touch with me, Dave, at faceinthefuture.org, if you have more questions about what we do. Hopefully I'll answer some of them here today for you. So one of the things that we talk about at Face in the Future is how to infuse this concept of sustainability into your classroom, into your teaching, and to help your students understand this and what it means for them in creating the future that they want using curriculum resources that we have to support doing that. So the definition you see up there is one that was created in 1987. It's called the Brundtland Report. That definition of sustainability is the idea of meeting our own needs without limiting the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Certainly there's more to it than that, but I don't want to belabor that point too much today. You can find out more about it on our website, and there's lots of good places you can go to read about that. But the idea is what you see there with that three-ring Venn diagram, that we're really aiming towards anything that we try and do, individually or as a community or as a country or as a planet to be sustainable for ourselves now and for future generations. It's certainly not a new idea. Here, for example, in North America, the Iroquois Confederacy's idea of planning for the seventh generation certainly gives credence to that same idea. So it also demonstrates that it's one that's existed for centuries, and doubtless, other countries, other societies, cultures around the world have had similar decision-making tools that they've used to evaluate what they're doing now to make sure their future generations, their offspring, can have access to the same things they've had in their lifetime. So that's something we try and infuse throughout our curriculum, and I think something you'll find also is definitely evident in the curriculum that we're talking about today, which is what we're here to talk about. So let's talk a little bit about that, water science and civics. It's a 5-lesson curriculum unit that was created by and large and thanks to funding by the Russell Family Foundation here in Washington State. And the idea behind that was to help teachers across the curriculum engage their students using 21st century technology, using an engaging topic of something that is ideally outside their door to some degree or another. And we'll talk about how close we are to that in a minute. There's 2 units. You can download it for free from our website, faceinthefuture.org. There's one written for middle school and one written for high school, and they are correlated, as you can see there, to the Washington State standards for science, technology, and social studies, and also to Washington State's environmental and sustainability education standards. So it's a nice way for you to have those things at your fingertips and to know that what you are teaching is going to meet the standards that your students are expected to to be able to demonstrate their knowledge of and their mastery of as they move towards graduation. So you can learn more about that in the materials itself, which again you can download from our website very easily, and again that's facingthefuture.org. One of the things that you can look up, it's listed in the unit itself when you download it, you can read it there, but also you can go to our website itself online. We have a searchable database of state education standards. So for example, if you look at that from our homepage, you would click to that resource link, and you could, for example, on the left-hand side in the green box there, click the Select Resources page, and that would allow you to then look up the title for water science and civics, and open that up and see which standards it's aligned to across the subject areas in Washington State. So about the unit itself, you'll see, for example, there are lessons in there that you can download smartboard compatible components for that. So each lesson will work on a smartboard if you have that in your classroom. We make use of interactive online maps that are accessible if you have an internet connection. And there's a fair amount of data presented in graphic form to get students involved in analyzing data in multiple different perspectives and understanding how to look at that and interpret it. And lastly, primarily in the fifth lesson component, there is the opportunity for students to engage in creating a digital video storytelling component. You can do this as a public service announcement if you wanted to, and to participate in a contest that they can post their videos online and perhaps win cash and prizes as students. I'll talk more about that now. So the contest that links to the lesson content in lesson number 5 is called Make a Sound Impact, and it's the opportunity for students to create public service announcements, do some digital video storytelling. It's open to students pretty much across formats. So whether you're in a formal classroom or you're working with students outside a traditional K-12 setting, the idea is that we want students to be able to have access to this and just share their stories with us and with people in Washington and around the world. So the contest is open until November 28th. It's open primarily as a rule to students who are ages 13 and up, and that's mostly because of federal laws regarding minors' access to the internet. And if you are an educator who has more than 10 students submit videos to this, they can be individual students or student groups, regardless, just 10 video submissions. Definitely contact me, and you can find out about how to receive a free classroom set of Facing the Future resources. So the prizes, of course, you're going to want to know about those. The top 3 submissions will each win $300 cash and also a 1-flip Ultra HD video camera. We also have, if your students or your classroom, if you don't have access to video cameras, we have loaner flip video cameras that we can get to you. And you can do that you can get those, contact me, or you can also get those by just going to our website and looking up the information about the contest itself. And I'm getting a note here that some of you may be experiencing poor video or poor audio content, and I apologize for that. I'm doing what I can to get that taken care of on this end. And that hopefully won't degrade things too much for folks. So I'm going to keep moving on, and hopefully the audio will improve. So the lessons itself, those are the titles of each of the lessons, and it gives you an idea of how the unit is set up. So it steps through introducing students to Puget Sound, looking at what are the services that Puget Sound provides us and how that helps make the Puget Sound in our region sustainable, and then moves into talking about what is non-point source pollution, say that 5 times fast, and how it affects Puget Sound and what it looks like in Puget Sound. Then shift gears a little bit from the scientific perspective that students have developed an understanding of to asking them to think about this from the political, social, economic, environmental perspective, and looking at how do we move forward in balancing all of our needs around the Puget Sound region and come up with a workable plan to improve the health of Puget Sound while also maintaining a strong economy and a healthy society as well. And that final one, then, the video production component, gives you and your students a chance, again, to participate in that video contest if you want to. Hopefully the audio is getting better for folks, and we'll keep moving on. So lesson number 1 starts off with a question of having students think about, who am I in relationship to Puget Sound? So I'm going to launch a survey here, and I want to get a feel for where folks are in relationship to Puget Sound. So let's see where you're at here. How far are you all from Puget Sound? And if you're really, really far away, which it looks like a few of you may be, if it's who I think it is, then you'll be clicking the E, 51 miles or more answer. So that's great to know for me because it gives me a sense of what the reach of this curriculum is, and also it reminds me to point out the fact that just because you don't live near Puget Sound doesn't mean you can't teach these lessons, because ideally they relate to any body of water. The pollution, stormwater issues may be slightly different, but the ideas of stormwater pollution are constant throughout the world, but the sources may be different. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Looks like everybody's voted that's going to vote, and give you a chance to see where folks are. So there's somebody who it looks like can see this right out their door, perhaps, Puget Sound, and most other folks it looks like would have to be up on an airplane to see Puget Sound from where they're at. So thank you all for joining, and it gives me a sense of where you're all at. So I'm going to close that out, and we'll keep moving on. So the first lesson then, students are asked to understand what the different ecosystems are in the Sound region, and then figure out where they are at and how they relate to it using online mapping. And the questions they're asked to then conquer are these that you see right here, as they think about, what's my role in Puget Sound, what do the different ecosystems look like, and how do I relate to it. And so with each lesson we have those kind of objectives and guiding questions to give you and the students you're working with a sense of what they're going to be accomplishing in that lesson. So I'm going to show you next a set of pictures from lesson number 1, and these are kind of the introductory hook part to the first lesson to get students really thinking about it, showing them some pictures that they may not initially have a sense of what their relationship to each other are, and then having a question and answer session afterwards to develop that understanding and create those relationships in their mind. So let's quickly run through these pictures. These are in the unit itself, so when you download them you can use them and show them digitally through a smartboard or projector, or you can print them off or have students look at them that way. So we see, well, I'm not going to tell you what they are. They speak for themselves, so there's going to be a little silence here. So as we approach the end, you might be getting a sense of what these pictures have in common, as I'm assuming you would, based on the subject of what we're talking about. And perhaps one of the more iconic images from Puget Sound or anywhere else in the Northwest is the orca or killer whale, which we are often fortunate enough to see in this area, and are also one of those apex species that tell us a lot about what's happening in Puget Sound. So students are shown those questions and then asked to think about, what's the relationship between these, how are they all related, what do they have in common, these are things you're going to see around Puget Sound, but also to think about these other questions about, what surprised you and what was interesting, and what else does the term Puget Sound, the name, come up with, what does that mean for you? And what might you add from your own community that shows your relationship to Puget Sound? Because just because you don't see it at the door doesn't mean you don't have a relationship to Puget Sound, because if you live within that watershed, that's where your stormwater goes. So the final parts then is have students understand just what is Puget Sound, geographically, what it means, the name, as far as how it was formed, and what's the concentration of population around it, and what's your relationship to it. So lesson 1, as you can see, kind of paints the stage for what we're going to be doing next in lesson 2, which is talking about that idea of ecosystem services. And I really love this caption, this title, because it, I think, really talks about what it is that we benefit from, and putting it in the terms of what is a service that Puget Sound provides for us, I think kind of shifts the understanding of how fortunate we are to have such a great service, and if we had to pay for it, what would it cost us? So lesson 2 asks students to think about, well, what are ecosystem services, and let's think about what the services are that the Puget Sound and its environs provide us, and if you're going to think about those services, where would they fall within those 3 circles of the sustainability diagram there. And so students think about these. Initially, it's maybe kind of a stumper question, and it certainly was for me when I first thought about it, to think about, well, what does a body of water do for us? And you can think about some examples here of just all the different things that we are fortunate enough to have essentially for free from Puget Sound. So anything from food, from salmon to shellfish, to opportunities to go outside and enjoy, Puget Sound in a boat or hiking or camping near it, paddling around, water skiing on it, you name it. But also it does things that would be much harder for us to do on our own, such as flood and storm protection, provide wetlands for water purification, and also those shorelines that are so important to us, that it does its own job of managing the erosion for that. And we also get electricity from the waters that feed into Puget Sound. So those are just some examples of the services that we get, and if you were to break these in economic terms, think about what it would cost to just alone provide the flood and storm protection that we get. It's a big number, perhaps. So it's a way of getting students to think about what Puget Sound does for us, maybe beyond just providing a view and a name. Lesson 3 then jumps into more specifically thinking about, well, what happens to all the things that go into Puget Sound, and what is point source pollution versus non-point solution. And you can see here some examples of what might be a point source and what might be a non-point source. So for example, that factory or the refinery that you see up in the upper left-hand corner would be considered a point source pollution because you can identify specifically where that pollution is coming from. But non-point solution, if you're not familiar with the definition, is one that comes from perhaps all over. It's difficult to target where it comes from because there's not a there's not a name that said that these car suds came from so and so at this address, or this oil slick was dropped here by whoever. Same thing with pet waste. For those of us who have pets, most folks I think are pretty good about cleaning that up, but most pets don't tell you where their waste came from and where it's going. So that's the idea behind this, is to have students think about what are the differences between point and non-point, and how do they reach Puget Sound through all those different streams and runoff, stormwater systems. Where do they all get there, and what does it do once it gets into Puget Sound? And specifically, how does this relate to here in the issue of dissolved oxygen in South Puget Sound? This may not be the ultimate issue that you decide to have your students work on, but it's one that there's been a lot of study on, and I think is an easy way to encapsulate the challenges facing Puget Sound based upon non-point solution or non-point pollution. So why focus on dissolved oxygen in particular? It's relatively easy to measure. It's also one that is a good indicator of the health of the water, and also gives you a sense of how water and oxygen relate to the health of the species that live in Puget Sound, because if there's not enough oxygen, it's stressful to those species that need oxygen to survive, which we all do. So how do these nutrients, an example, contribute to low dissolved oxygen, or the idea of hypoxia, which is not enough oxygen in the water? So you see that picture there, for example, of an algal bloom, and that's very green, and you can imagine what contributes to that is often excess nutrients, primarily nitrogen and potassium. And how those things, for example, from fertilizer runoff, things that get swept off into the water, how those relate to creating excess nutrients that then cause algae and other critters to grow up and suck up the oxygen that other plants and animals need to survive. And hypoxia is a tough one to figure out, because it's not often easily addressed to one particular issue. So, for example, some issues that people are trying to address is, why is dissolved oxygen lower at certain times, certain places, or certain areas in Puget Sound? And in Lesson 3, students are then asked to think about, well, what's a question that I would ask to think about how do I address hypoxia? How do I look at dissolved oxygen and understand how to perhaps improve it and get it back to where it should be? So below are some examples of questions that are being researched right now by students at the UW School of Oceanography. And you can see what they're looking at. A couple different inputs there, looking also at Puget Sound and also Hood Canal. And then students are then asking about, well, how would I go about answering this question? What organizations, what groups could I call upon to get expert information? How would I go about finding out that information? And how would I go about formulating up my question and also answering my question using the scientific method? Moving on then to question number 4, one of our last survey questions here is, think about that one. How many cars, buses, and trucks are registered to owners in the Puget Sound region? So that's that multi-county area that you can imagine what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and ask one more survey question for you all to give you a sense of just how many cars are there out there. All right, looks like just about everybody's voted. And our sense of this is all across the board, which is great. So that's why these little survey questions are fun to see. Let's go ahead and pop this one up here. So you can see where we're at, a little bit of everything. And I'm going to go ahead and close this out then and give you what the correct answer is, which is 5.8 million. So that's a lot of cars and trucks and buses driving around. So you can imagine certainly that has an impact not only on the air quality but also on water quality. And lots of reasons for why that is. One that we often associate with cars certainly is runoff from oil, the dirt from our tires, things like that. Air emissions also that get swept into the water as it rains. But the other thing to think about is all the other stuff that drains off of our cars. One of those, which is copper from brake pads, and that's a still pretty common ingredient being phased out, but we've come to understand that copper, for example, has an impact on, for example, salmon being able to smell their way home, among other things. And so I'm not going to ask you to answer a poll question about this one, but I'll give you a sense of what the answer is here about how many pounds of copper gets swept into Puget Sound each year through stormwater drains and runoff. 70,000 pounds, so that's a lot of copper pipe, or brake pads, as the case may be. And then this one I think is intriguing. You think about how many lakes and streams and rivers in the Puget Sound watershed are impacted by poor water quality. And it's a relatively high number, so 594. And so those are all going to be essentially, ultimately, most likely waters that drain into Puget Sound. And if their water quality is poor, that ultimately affects Puget Sound's water quality. So that leads up to the Lesson 4 Town Hall meeting, which is having students think about the long-term sustainability of Puget Sound in a town hall meeting format with various stakeholder groups represented, and to have them think about how can they move forward with creating a plan for improving the health of Puget Sound while also making sure that their own group's needs get met for now and in the future. So they're given some handouts that are included in the download from the unit, and they do a role play having to represent their particular stakeholder groups and having to do some trade-offs, some compromising, some collaborating with other stakeholder groups to make sure that they're all getting their own needs met and also improving the health of Puget Sound. And this is the scenario you have, is that there's millions of pounds of toxic pollution that could get into Puget Sound. Lots of aquatic species are becoming endangered because of this, anything from shellfish to killer whales to orcas to salmon to humans who swim in it too. So the stakeholders are asked to attend a town hall meeting and determine how to decrease this pollution in hopes of increasing the health of Puget Sound and also improving the ecosystem services that the Sound provides for us. So there's a list of the stakeholder groups. So you've got anything from economic groups like refineries and economic and development to regional councils to citizens to tribes to a cruise line association, because we all know we see a lot of cruise ships entering Puget Sound every year now. And those are all drivers that are, or drivers or stakeholders, I should say, that are involved in Puget Sound in various forms historically and current times, and have an interest in making sure that the Sound is meeting their needs, but is healthy for the future as well. So they're given a series of questions to think through in their own groups, and as they work through and negotiate with other groups, and to come up with a plan for what they can do to help with the management and conservation of Puget Sound. Which then kind of leads to the final lesson, which is, we've studied Puget Sound from various angles. We've looked at the science behind dissolved oxygen and hypoxia. Let's think about, what we can do to manage it in the future, and big picture, what can we do as youth, as students right now? And that we felt like one of the best ways to do that was to allow them to tell their own story and share it with other people. So that's where we come up with our video production. So it's an opportunity for students to be involved in action in their own communities, talking about stewardship and what that means to them and what it means for taking care of Puget Sound now and for the future, to preserve those ecosystem services that we, to some degree, take for granted, and also give them the opportunity to use 21st century technology and have the opportunity to win cash and prizes, which is all thanks to the Russell Family Foundation. So the contest to make a sound impact, you can learn more about it on our website. It's a component of the curriculum unit, and it's an opportunity for them to create a public service announcement. These announcements get submitted, they get uploaded online, and there is a panel that will be judging these, and you'll find out by the end of the year what the winners are. And again, the top 3 are eligible for $300 cash and a Flip HD video camera. So there's lots of different ways students can do this. They can shoot live video with dialogue and voiceover and music. You can do more of a digital story, which is going to be still pictures with art, music, and a voiceover, and then some kind of a mix of in between. There's more information in the video, it's in the unit itself, about resources and links that you can use to tell these stories, to get students involved in making them and editing them and uploading them. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do not have access to video cameras, we do have a limited number of flip video cameras that we can loan out. And you can contact me, Dave at faceinthefuture.org, or go to our website and learn more about how to access those yourself. And so please do spread the word. Even if you're not planning on participating yourself, we think it's a great opportunity for youth to be involved and to be rewarded for their efforts, and hopefully create a story, a PSA that will be educational maybe for their own groups or for other groups around the Sound. And if you are fortunate enough to have more than 10 or more students submit something, then you're eligible to receive a free classroom set of resources of your choice from Facing the Future. So that's about the end of what we're talking about here today. I want to wrap up by just sharing a little bit more about what we offer. We have not only those free curriculum units like the one we just talked about, but we have units on what you can see there, for example, climate change. We have science and social studies oriented units about sustainability in general, and we have one about conservation and snow leopards. We also have an upcoming one for younger grades called Engaging Students with the World. That'll be coming out next month. And so many of those are available for free from our website, especially if you're a Washington teacher. Our Understanding Sustainability units normally are charged or cost, but if you're in Washington, those are free. We also have teacher's guides and student textbooks, and again, many of those lessons from the teacher's guides you can download for free, and also preview chapters from the student textbooks as well you can download. And stay tuned in the future. We're going to be releasing a full global sustainability course framework with student readings, student textbooks, and teacher's guides for a high school social studies or science course. So that'll be coming out next year or the year after. Lastly, if you want to stay connected with us, again, that's our web address, faceinthefuture.org. You can sign up for our e-newsletter, which comes out 6 times a year, and also soon to be released, we will have a print and digital catalog that you can sign up for. Our Peer Educator program is an opportunity for you as an educator to tell your story about sustainability and global issues education and how you use Facing the Future resources in your education program, and then we can reimburse you if you go to a workshop or conference and tell your story. We can reimburse a lot of your expenses for doing that. We send out a survey once every year, which is how we come to create a lot of the units that we do create. So if you get our survey, please do respond to that. And lastly, that's my contact information. I'm Dave at faceinthefuture.org. And when you leave this webinar today, you're going to see a short survey. It's helpful for me as a presenter to get some feedback. It's also helpful for us as an organization to understand if you're currently using our resources, if you plan on using them in the future. Please do fill that out. It's very informative for me. And for those of you who are watching this in archive format, you don't have to worry about the survey. But for those of you who are, it's very helpful if you do fill it out. So thanks to everybody for attending today. I'm going to leave you with this thought from Buckminster Fuller. And hopefully that will be a little bit of inspiration for you as you go forward. Hopefully download the curriculum unit from our website for free and take a look at it, share it with others, and remember the Make a Sound Impact video contest. So thank you all. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.